I have two stories, sort of. One's kind of a story and one's kind of a question. The first one is, I can remember a time when I was in a band and I worked all week, maybe 2 weeks. Can't remember, 1 or 2 weeks. And I perfected the songs. There's 4 songs, maybe 3 songs. I think it was 4 songs. And I worked really hard. And I made sure I understood all the chords. I knew the changes. I worked on the rhythm. I can't remember if I worked in a metronome or not, with a metronome or not. This was several years ago. But I worked out all the songs. I made sure I knew them. I showed up to the gig, to the place to play, and the band leader, we had like music stands and chord charts and stuff. And I looked down at the chord chart, and it was in a completely different key. And the band leader told me right then, when we were playing in, I don't know, an hour, that we had changed the key of that song. And my heart sank. I'm like, but I haven't practiced the song in that key. I don't know what those chords are. I didn't even know enough to be able to like slide my chords around. It was a position of panic. Like, we're going to do this in an hour and I am going to totally butcher it because I don't know what to do. That's the story. The question is, have you ever been in a situation where there's a band leader, a music director, whatever, there's somebody that is that has some level of music direction, and they're pushing a direction of what we're doing, and they shout out like something like, "Go to the 2 here," or "Play the 5," and you just stop, right? You're like, I don't know what the 2 is and I don't know what the 5 is. So the best thing for me to do is kind of drop out and hope that the keyboards, the other guitar player, the bass, the acoustic guitar, whatever it is, hope that those instruments fill up the space. So the solution to this is understanding what we'll call the Nashville number system. That's a modern name for it. We won't get into that, but we'll call it the Nashville number system because it's easy to understand. Or it translates easy in modern band settings. I think that I can get you from, I don't know what the heck that is, to I have enough of an understanding that when somebody yells to me, play the 4, I know what that means. Okay, so when you think numbers, it's a bit daunting your first time. It was for me. I was like, I don't know what any of those numbers mean. I only know chords. I know C, D, G, A, E, B, so on and so forth. There's a bit of a hill there, right, to get over. There's like, it's hard here. It becomes easier here. And then on the other side of that, you think, why didn't I do this before? I'm going to share my experience of how I got from A to B in not thinking of like letters of a chord and thinking of intervals and numbers of a chord. And I think by the end of this, you'll at least have enough information to be able to at least understand some common. You may not, maybe not everyone every chord that someone shouts at you, you may have to stop and think, oh my gosh, is that the A minor? Is that the D? Whatever. But you'll have enough understanding to be able to logically kind of walk that back and understand what that means. There's really two steps to this. The first step is the major scale. Okay. So from a theoretical perspective, the major scale is literally everything. Everything you do is gonna branch off of this. So if you're taking this as your first step in music theory, by just grasping the major scale, you'll be able to launch this into many other things. But first thing we need to do is kind of define the major scale and the intervals in the major scale in order to understand what numbers are. So we'll use C, for example, and the major scale intervals. Okay, first let's stop for a minute. So they don't start on 1, they start on 2. So 1 is kind of ignored when you're thinking of intervals because the first interval is from 1 to 2. So 2 is the first ending point. So think of intervals at the ending point of what you're trying to do. And it goes whole, half, whole, half. Where half is 1 fret. It's a half step. A whole step is 2 frets. And that's where we get the wholes from. So whole, half, whole, half. So in C, that's C. That's the one you don't count that. D, that's the whole, right? Because it's 2 halves. 3 is another whole, right? That's the whole. The half is 4. These half steps are kind of important, so pay attention to those. So that's half. Whole again. Whole again. Whole again. Half. So if you were to bookmark something in your brain, it's the 4. Because that's a half step, 3 to 4. And the 7 to 8 or 7 to root. Because that's another half. Alright, so 0, nothing, whole, half, whole. And it doesn't matter where you play it. So that's C, so you play C here. Whole. So whole. Same thing. So once you get those intervals under your fingers, right, and it does not matter what key you're in. You can move this to any key. So there's C, we could do B, start on B, whole, half, whole, half. Start on a really weird key like D flat, right, whole, half, same. Back to C because it's easy. This is the 1. This is the 2. This is the 3. This is the 4. This is the 5. This is the 6. 7, 8. However you look at it. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whatever those notes are, they translate to different spots in the neck. That's the first thing you have to nail. You have to nail what those intervals are, and you have to know where they are on the neck. That's the easiest way to do it on one string, but same thing, right? Different fingers. Same thing here. 3, 4. Whatever it is, you can kind of move that around in octaves, but that's the one thing you have to nail. Major scale intervals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 to 4 is a half step. 7 to 1 is a half step. All right, given that we now know the intervals in a major scale from 1 all the way through 7 or 8, however you want to look at it, we have to think of like chords. So there's diatonic chords in a key. Diatonic is just a fancy way of saying, is it major or is it minor? Most of them, 6 of them, are major or minor. So that works out like this. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. Yeah, my fingers can't do it. Diminished. That's half diminished. Doesn't matter. You're probably never going to use that particular chord. Just know that the 7th is some sort of diminished. You can look that up later. But you're probably never going to use that. The key takeaway is the major. 1's major, 2's minor, 3 is minor, 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, and then 7 is diminished. So if we combine that information with the interval information, we get this. 1, so 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, 2 is minor, 4 is major, 3 is minor. So if someone were to start calling out, say we're in C, we understand our intervals, we understand our diatonic chords, and someone, while we're playing in the key of C, we're on the 1, right? They say, go to 6. You automatically know what it is. Because you understand your diatonic thing. You know that's A. So it could be here, because it's minor, or here. Same chord. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what voicing you play. What matters is that you play the right chord. And that's a 6. So we can move that to the key of E. Somebody says, play the 6. You already know what it is. It's a C sharp. Why is it the C sharp? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your intervals and your diatonic chords. You already know what it is. What's 4? 4 is A. It's 5. 5 is B. Why is the 5 B? Because that's the C. 5 is directly above it. Why? Because of the G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 of that scale is the G. So you'll always know what chord to be on if you understand the intervals and you understand the diatonic chords in the key. If you memorize, I'm not a big fan of memorizing. I'm more of a fan of like understanding. But if you memorize what those intervals are in a major scale, and all 12 keys, possibly, to help you kind of solidify that as part of your practice routine, just go through those major scale and make sure you understand all the intervals for all 12 keys, and then what those chords are. Practice playing through the chords. We could do G. And then 5, 6. And then this is 7. All over the neck. Once you understand those intervals, diatonic chords, you can reverse engineer, for lack of a better term. You can take the information you know and the information you're given, play the 4, and figure it out from the front to the back. oh, the 4, I'm in the key of F, whole, half. All right, I know that half is the 4. That 4 is B flat. At first, you won't be able to like jump immediately when somebody yells 4, but after a while you will, and you'll notice patterns in songs, and you'll be able to change keys without even thinking about it, or be able to go to a chord in a key if you're reharmonizing something, or if you have some spontaneous moment, some jam session, and they're like, oh, we're just gonna vamp on the 5. You know what it is. All right, so how do you use it? I would argue that most of the chord progressions that you come across are going to be one of 3 variations. The first one we'll call 1465. 1465. Some variation. They may switch the 4 and the 6 around, but it's really that. It's the 1, the 4, the 6, and the 5. If those are in your head, if those 4 chords are in your head, and whatever key you're playing in, you're going to have a pretty easy time jumping if somebody calls out a chord. Second one is a 1-4-5. This is your typical blues progression, but it goes to so many genres. Like, it's not blues, it's rock, it's jazz blues, it's worship music, it's whatever genre you're playing. The 1-4-5 is probably there. And the last one is a 2-5-1, and that's primarily a jazz progression. So if you're playing jazz music, this is probably elementary to you. You're probably not watching this. But if you're jazz curious, and you're kind of analyzing some jazz music, this could be helpful. So I'm going to play through a couple in different keys and kind of show you what I mean. And your ear should recognize the progression. And the numbers will start to become familiar too. So I'll do 1-4-6-5, and we'll do C. So. So we're going to jump strings. We're going to root on the A string, but we know that the 1-4-6-5 is 1-4-6 because of our intervals. 5, right? Or we could do 1-4-6-5 because we know what the notes are too. The notes we haven't stressed too much, but the notes are kind of important. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 6. And you see there that like I jumped chords, but because I visually knew where the 1, 4, 5, and 6 were, I knew that this D could be played down here. The F sharp minor, which I knew was a 6, could be played here. So it allows you to kind of jump around and do some cool stuff. All right, 1, 4, 5. Really common. We'll jump to B, but we'll root it on the E string just to kind of show you it's a subset of what we just did, but important still. 1, that's a 4, 5, and you can change the voicings up again since you know that 1 is the B, 4 is the E, 5, F sharp minor, which is the same as E. So go to the E, I misspoke. Let me correct myself. That's not the F sharp minor. It's F sharp major. It's not the same as A, which I called E. So B, E, F sharp minor. So if we do B, 4, 5, 4, and you can kind of move it around because you know what that pattern is. It's easier on bar chords because that pattern is repeatable across the strings. Last one, 2, 5, 1. So let's say key of C. The 2 we know is minor because major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. So we know the 5 is major based on the intervals and the diatonic chords. And to the 1. The 1's always major. And a major key. Play it in a really weird key. We'll do E flat, and I don't have to think about what the chords are because they're going to be weird flat chords and such. All I have to think about are the intervals based on the root, and then how they relate to the root. So 2, 5. So that's 3 chord progressions that are good to practice when you're playing around at home. You're not on a gig or some show. Play around with those chord progressions and then think in your head what number you're on. I want to give you one last piece of, it's not really advice, it's kind of experience. What I did when the story I said in the beginning where I showed up and they're like, oh, we're playing it in a different key, and I didn't want to be exposed to that situation anymore. I started making my own chord charts. So you may receive chord charts, somebody may give you something, or just a song, and maybe you go find it online. or you write your own, whatever it is, I would start writing those in numbers. So like, that's the other part of the Nashville number system that I won't get into here. But like, there's a way to denote if it's a whole note, if it's a half note, if it's one beat, if it's 3 beats. Most of them are going to be whole and half notes, right? So it's either going to be 4 beats or 2 beats most of the time. And then start rewriting those. What I do, top of the sheet, I put the scale across. I probably don't need to do this anymore, but I still do it. If it's the scale across, I put the scale across. I find the 5th interval, I put a little 5 underneath it with a circle. So I know, okay, that's my center, essentially, of my scale, right? I put down the time signature, the BPM, the name of the song, and then I start putting the parts down. Intro, and then a number. And I try to put them in 4-bar sections so that they make sense when you're reading it and playing it. And then I use repeat signs. And if you Google Nashville number system, you're going to see different symbols that mean different things. And you can make up your own. You don't have to follow that like it's the law. But make your own charts. And then you'll probably end up with books and books and books of songs. And when you're playing a song again for a different show, a different gig, a different thing, a different whatever, and they're like, oh, we're doing it in G, but last time you did it in D, and you have it denoted in numbers and in rhythm accents on it, so you know the rhythm of the song, how long chords should sit. You're golden. You're done. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is practice it in that other key. So that's it. So I think if you wrap your head around major scale in all 12 keys, preferably, the intervals of those major scales, they're all the same. And then the diatonic chords of those major scales, and get that kind of embedded in your brain, you'll be able to transpose things on the fly, and you'll be able to react when somebody says play the 5 or the 2 or the 4 or whatever. You'll be able to jump to that really quick. And it will also help in your soloing and your chord voicings. More on that later. But that's it. So hopefully this helps. So go out and have fun and make cool music. See ya.